Oh my God, please help me knee deep in the river trying to get clean. He says wash your hands, get out the stains, but you best believe, boy, there's hell to pay. Yeah, you best believe, boy, there's hell to pay. Saying, come on. Oh my God.
Anyway, be that as it may, I don't know if you've been following this story, and I'm going to give you some background on it so you understand where I'm coming from. The owners of a Christian bakery in Oregon refused to make a wedding cake for a lesbian couple. They came in, wanted a cake. The bakery said no because it was a violation of their faith. And they were then sued because the couple then filed a complaint with the Oregon Equality Board, which there is one, the Bureau of Labor and Industries. Their investigation came forward with this result. It said the investigation concludes that the bakery is not a religious institution under the law, and that the business's policy of refusing to make same-sex wedding cakes represents an unlawful discrimination based on sexual orientation. There have been a number of situations since this original one around the country where gays or lesbians have an event, or they're getting married, some gay or lesbian event. They've gone in, ordered food, cake, whatever, doesn't really matter, and been denied because of the Christian faith of the business owners, and then, of course, government intervened. Now, you have to understand, going forward, no court has ruled on this. Basically, this bakery is where it stands now as of January 20th, which is today, no, which is about a month ago. They went to arbitration on this case, and then there's a period of reconciliation. In other words, they're trying to arbitrate. They don't want to go to court because the expenses are high. And during this time, this bakery has been subject to protests, pickets. You know how it's going to be. Gay activists are going to jump down the throat of anybody that says, I don't have anything to do with gays. Arizona has decided to stick its nose in this case in another state. What they have done is they have put a bill forth at the legislature, direct along party lines, that says that a business can basically do something like this. And I'm not going to read the letter of the law. They can deny their services to someone because of their faith. And it would basically puts the same protections on individuals and businesses from state action that would hinder their right to exercise their faith. The bill would extend that protection to private transactions. So if somebody comes into your business in Arizona, if this law passed and signed, it hasn't yet, and says, I'm having a gay wedding, and you make wedding cakes, and you're of the Christian faith, and you say that violates my constitutional right of freedom of expression under faith, I can refuse service to you. First of all, let's get some basic facts down, which fucking Arizona doesn't understand. Oregon and the other states where these cases are have something called an Oregon Equality Act, which protects, and we're like whatever it is, whatever state it is, Idaho protects, it's a law that protects the right of the LGBT community. These states where these cases are enacted have a separate protected class for lesbians and gays. Arizona does not. Therefore, in Arizona, you are already allowed to deny your services to someone because of sexual orientation. They have a right to sue you and file a complaint, but there is no law in Arizona which protects that community. I checked. Second of all, the case in Oregon specifically had never gone to court. The state Supreme Court hasn't ruled on it. The Superior Court hasn't ruled on it. The Supreme Court of the United States hasn't ruled on it. The Supreme Court generally will rule against the couple because there is no federal and constitutional standard for a protected class for gays or lesbians or LGBT or whatever you want to call yourself. Why not let that process go forth? Because it will, sooner or later, before you go issuing a bill or passing a law which is going to bring every homosexual group in the country down on you. This is an election year. Let the system work. Nobody in California and Arizona is filing these cases because there is no equality law in Arizona. That's why they can go forward. It's not because we don't have that law. This is going to happen here. It's an overreaction, and it's going to promote discrimination, and it's going to force the hand of Arizona going again to the Supreme Court, where we may lose because of the way this bill is passed. It encourages discrimination in this state. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not saying that. First of all, let's examine this case. A bakery, whether it's Christian or not, can have a right to refuse service to anyone if it's not in violation of labor law. There is no labor law regarding gays in the state of Arizona. Second of all, how does making a cake for a gay or lesbian wedding violate the Christian faith? I've been a Roman Catholic ever since I can remember. I don't remember anywhere in the Bible it says, "Thou shalt not make a wedding cake for gays." If you don't want to make a cake for them, and you know that there's this law in the books, let's say you're in Oregon, I'm not talking about Arizona now, why wouldn't you just make, look, we can't not make the cake. We can't refuse their business in the state because they're gay. They're a protected class in Oregon. See, you make a shitty cake, and they don't like it. They say, we want our money back, fine. But you make them a friggin' cake, keep everybody happy, and why would you go to arbitration? Say, sue me to court. Sue me. And go to court. No, you don't even need a lawyer. You go to case. So I can refuse service to anyone. Oh, well, you can't because of this law. Well, I challenge that law. I say that's not right. And then you let the courts run with it. Some ACLU attorney or some civil liberties will take your case. Meanwhile, here in Arizona, we're going to jump in. We're going to butt in where we're not wanted. We're going to pass a law, make the Republican Party look like a bunch of fucking redneck idiots and racists and whatever else they want to call us, and have the thing blow up in our face and take the heat off Oregon and put it on Arizona. Why would you do that? Why? There's no pending important reason for Arizona to do this. If there were a bunch of cases that were in front of judges here in Arizona of similar cases and a bunch of lawsuits, then I could say, well, you might want to get involved. And you don't write the law this way, saying that they're allowed to. You don't. You just say, you make a simple law that says that a business owner has a right to refuse service to anyone that's not a protected class. That's all you got to do. You don't got to make it about gay rights. And then let the chips fall where they may. This just makes the Republican Party in Arizona look like a bunch of hicks. Our image in this country has gone right down the toilet, and we're going into an election year. We're going to elect a new governor. We're going to elect congressmen in the next 4 years. The legislature, right now, Arizona is in a very precarious state. You've got situations where the left are making big moves in the state. Why give them ammunition? I'm not saying whether the law is right or not. It's a stupid law, first of all. You just got to say food service is also considered the tavern keeper's law. In other words, you extend those rights over, and then the tavern keeper was making cakes or whatever. But I want a Christian to call this show. How is it a violation of your faith not to make a cake? Do you accept homosexual business if it's not a wedding cake? Do you ask every customer that walks into your store and orders a dozen cookies, listen, I can make a joke about packing fudge, but I'm not going to. I have too much respect for people like that. Why would you do that? Do you ask every customer if they're gay when they come into your store? When they make a special order, listen, I'd like a bunch of 12 pink cookies. Do you say, well, is that because you're gay or because you like pink? You see what I'm saying? You guys, this legislature and this law is ridiculously stupid and self-defeating. Second of all, by establishing a law that extends the government protection right, in other words, an action that would hinder your faith, to private transactions, you open a whole nother can of worms too. Does a church have a right to refuse service to a Jew that walks into their church and asks for redemption? See what I'm going? You open up worms that cans you don't want to know. You're going to go down a path that you don't want to go down. Second of all, now that you're passing this law, as soon as this law passes, you can bet that some gay couple is going to walk into a bakery and order a cake and challenge it in court, challenge the law. Thus, you immediately end up in the Supreme Court pipeline and establishing a constitutional standard as to whether LGBT people are a protected class. What you did is open the door to establish them as a protected class. And if you do that, that's going to open up even more doors and more problems in society and more complex issues which divide the society further. All you did was pour fuel on the fire by issuing this bill. You look like a bunch of morons too, because the average guy in the street really doesn't give a shit whether somebody's gay or not. They really don't. If you talk, I mean, if most people, they travel in circles with other people. You know, Christians hang out with Christians, Mormons hang out with Mormons. It's just the way it works out. So they all talk to you. They go, see, everybody's against it. It's not. Studies have shown, and many polls have shown, that people don't really care what others do in their private time or in their bedroom. And this is going to play into that. They're going to say, see, the Republicans, they want to tell you what goes on in the bedroom. See? Are you a fucking idiot down there in the legislature? Pardon my French. Don't you understand how you're filling up their cannons with ammunition? If you want to do this, then the way to do it is to make it as non sequitur as possible. Extend tavern keeper rights to businesses that provide food, such as bakeries and other institutions. Don't make it about religion and faith and gays. That's not the business of government. If somebody lets somebody sue and say he refused service to me as a gay, then you as a state or a court can say, well, gays are not a protected class in Arizona, and that ends the debate without getting the whole country involved debating about whether Arizona are a bunch of buck-tooth ignorant asses, because that's how it's going to be painted in the media. Every news source from here to Los Angeles is going to come up with a story on this. Arizona is at it again. They're going to come down on you with pitchforks, man, and torches, just like they did in 1047. It's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. I read this story and I go, oh, Jesus. Here I am doing a story out of Arizona. I'm a conservative. And they're not dealing with 100 issues that are affecting this state's economy. They're not dealing with 100 more serious issues. They're not dealing with things that are a big problem in the state. And we're going to talk about this instead of what's really ailing this country. This is not an issue that the state legislature should be wasting time on. We got better and bigger fish to fry. We got a problem with this economy. We've got a problem with taxation. We've got a problem with revenues. We've got a problem with the unions running the city of Phoenix. We've got a problem with fraud. We've got a problem with electioneering. These are all matters that need to be addressed, that smart minds need to sit down and say, hey, listen, how can we craft the laws to prevent this kind of violation of the trust between government and the people from happening again? These are the kind of things you should be talking about, not whether some Christian owner in friggin' Oregon had his rights removed. And I got the news for you. The case in Oregon, it's going to work its way through the courts eventually because these people aren't going to give up. And when it does, the Supreme Court is going to rule in favor of this bakery because it's going to say LGBT people are not a protected class under the Constitution. And therefore, you can't tell people that they have to work. Not to mention, it's a violation of the 13th Amendment. You can't force people to work for you. Nobody thinks of that. Nobody sits down and has a cooler head and thinks about the larger implications of what you do. It's the same problem in the federal government. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. Nobody's thinking about the global implications of what we're doing. They all see this narrow thing. It's just another situation where people's religion has gotten involved with their politics. I suppose I'm going to lose about half my audience because probably they all support this law. But I got to tell you, folks, it does more damage than good. Have there been any bakeries in Arizona that have been picketed or their rights violated. No. You know why? There's no law. There's no Equality Act that Oregon has on the books. That's why they're suing. It's not because they're gay. They're suing because they're a protected class in Oregon. You got to understand. Look, let me calm down a minute. Right now, we're in a battle nationally for the soul and the heart and the mind of the American people. We've got to craft a public image of what we're really all about. Namely, small government, low taxes, free markets. Obamacare is the biggest threat to that. Before we can worry about the little details, we've got to win the main event. We've got to get control of the Senate. We have to get control of the White House. And it may have to be done in increments. We may get the Senate this time, get the presidency the next time, or vice versa. In order to do that, we have to get a message and a marketing plan that gets away from this image of what we aren't. The Republican Party has always been the party that has stood for equal rights. The Republican Party has always been the party that stood for non-discrimination. It's always been that. The Democrats have always been the one that say, you're too stupid, you're too slow, you're too dumb, so you need government's help. Unless we focus on that message, craft our legislation, and avoid these divisive issues, we're never going to get there. And as we never get there, it doesn't matter all the friggin' laws that you pass. This country is going to get worse, and it's going to degrade even further. And the economy is going to go right down with it. You guys are fighting all these tinfoil hat wearers. You're fighting these little battles, and you're forgetting what the war is all about. Why was the Tea Party formed? What was the motivating factor? Obamacare. It went from town hall people who were upset and said, we got to organize, we got to break up this Obamacare, to the Tea Party. And it was all about big government, wasn't it? It was all about having too much taxes and redistribution of wealth. That's why we're all here. That's why we're all together. That's why I'm blogging. That's why you're listening. Every time we get sidetracked on a little thing, the enemy wins a little bit more. They become more popular because they could paint us as a bunch of tinfoil hat wearing extremists. How many times did you hear the president say, Mitt Romney is an extremist? Did anyone who's a real conservative or a member of a Tea Party believe that for a minute? Of course not. Of course not. But the American people, who's largely uneducated, believed it. And you're not going to ever reconvince the American people of anything else if you keep passing stupid bills like this, because they're going to come out and they're going to say, see, once again, the Republicans are telling us what to do in our homes, in our bedrooms. They hate gays. What did the Pope say about homosexuality? Yeah, they're sinners, but we got to live with them in our society until we can teach them the error of their ways. He didn't say, don't sell them wedding cakes, though, did he? All right, we're out of time on this show. I'm glad you were joining me today. I'd like you to join me tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to talk about a story we didn't talk about today, and was these fingerprint guns. I wanted to and just ran out of time. I blew my blood pressure up at another 30 points. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, and we're going to talk about some of the changes that are coming to the show. Show expansion. We're going to add some people on the microphone that help in the show, and it's going to be more than a one-man show. I hope you're going to join me with that. It's going to be a longer show. It'll be a lot more interesting. Not that I'm disinteresting. I'd like to think I'm interesting with all the people we're getting to watch the show. But we got a lot more to offer you, and a lot more fun to come in the next coming 6 months. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.